Hey, good morning. It's Friday and I've been doing some art whilst I've got a stinky headache today. You can see there I've got a nice small watercolour pad because I'm doing this Domestica course on botanical illustration sketchbook thing. The watercolour paper I've got I don't like particularly because it's not nice to draw on. I wanted something that was really smooth, so I had to look around, and I found something that's called the Botanical Ultra Smooth watercolour paper. It's 50% cotton. It's RKB Fat Pad. I don't know if that's the company, but this is an A5 size. I have got an A4 size, and I just wanted to try it out to see how pens work on it. The top illustration or drawing I did last night and wanted to finish. I had some colouring to finish off this morning, so I started by doing that, and I thought, oh, perhaps I want to record this. And that one I drew with a Signo DX 0.38 pen, which is a rollerball pen, but the ink is permanent, and that pen writes really nicely on that paper. So I thought then I'd try one of my uni pins, and that's it's an 02 uni pin I used. I think it's an 02. I can't remember now. And again, that works nicely. You can feel the very slight texture of the paper a little bit more perhaps, but my hand really wasn't very steady, and my eyes aren't working properly. It's a migraine-y kind of headache I've got. So I suspect it won't be long before I have to sleep it off. Anyway, I digress. And last night, the one at the top, I just drew because I could, and I just let things grow and develop, and I've ended up with something that I realise looks like a weird-assed fish, and sort of mechanical, biomechanical, or alien, or just abstract. I don't know what you'd call it. And I think that subconsciously was in my mind for the second one. And you can see me drawing this here. It's drawing quite slowly for me, although you'll get to see a lot of this video sped up, I'm sure. But it was still nice to do. I'm well aware that when I have a headache like this, and I have taken some painkillers, that it can take a long while for the headache to go. I don't know what's caused it, but I know I had a pretty sleepless night. Was waking up really hot and sweaty again, so hormones, I'm guessing. You get to know these things, and one day I'll go, oh, that's why, because I can be incredibly dim about things. But anyway, but it was really just nice to do, and the drawing is really quite small. There's a fair amount of detail in them both, even though they're very small. And just seeing how watercolour, I did them, well, the first one particularly, just so I could see how watercolour paints work. Now bear in mind that I've said often enough, I'm going to leave watercolour and traditional media alone, but I keep on coming back to it. And I do find it a nice thing to do. It's just working out how they work for me. And I should know by now that using them in the way I have here is how I get them to work for me. So, absolutely bonkers. Yeah, I know. I did this as well because I knew that there's no way that I could work digitally because my head, my eyes just won't let me. It's just too much at the moment still. But the way I like, you'll see how I work with watercolour in a short while. But I did choose a pretty limited palette of colours, and you can see that just off to the left in the image. They're Cotman watercolours from Winsor and Newton, and they're student quality, but they're really quite nice. in their way. All the other paints I've tried, they don't really make nice colour combinations when they're mixed, apart from the Phoenix brand, which is really quite nice actually, so I'm going to have to try that one out on the paper. But you can see I've got I think it's red. I think it's just called, is it called red? Do you know, I can't remember what the colour are, but it's sort of like it's a brown red. This is some kind of brown. That's also some kind of brown. So I've got 3 browny colours there. One's red, one's more of an orangey brown, one's a proper dark brown. Didn't use the dark brown very much, but I did use it. The yellow you can see is gamboge, which has got to be one of my favouriteest colours when it comes to watercolour. It looks an icky brown in the pan, and you add water and it goes to this yellow that is both lemony and orange at the same time, and it can go to a browny colour depending on how diluted you make the colour. I just find it fascinating. So I've also got indigo and turquoise, and I think it was Payne's grey on the upper pan, and the green you can see is made by mixing turquoise and gamboge and all the shades there. And so essentially I've got a palette of what, 5-6 colours. I didn't really use the grey very much, and I certainly didn't use that dark brown very much, except for the odd shadows here and there. So yeah, so I've enjoyed that. So it's all good fun. It's strange watching myself draw while I'm doing a voiceover, because I wasn't going to try and talk and art at the same time this morning. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this one here, and I shall pick up the commentary a bit later on. So here you can see that I finished drawing. I actually added some details to the upper design because I felt it needed to look a bit more fish-like to be in keeping with the one in the bottom. So tail and fins, or fin, appeared there, because I think the bottom one looks a bit like there's a fin there. The other one's got some strange ones. You can see I'm using quite a fine brush. I think it's an 02 in size. Yeah, it's a size 2. And it's one of my favourite ones. It's a spotter brush, so the bristles aren't all that long, but they're still quite springy. And I've loved this particular brand for years. I keep trying others, but I always end up going back to these brushes. So I think they're my favourite. Also, then synthetic hairs, bristles. So I don't like using ones with animal hair in, full stop. So that's me, that's part of me being vegetarian and so on. As far as possible, I buy everything that's cruelty free and vegan or vegetarian. Not everything, but as much as I can. It's just who I am. There you can see the lovely sort of like one of the shades of green you get. And the brush isn't wet. I don't work well with watercolours when they're very wet. I like them fairly dry, and I like to be able, I think the term is to glaze over, is to add layers, but not a huge number of layers, but just enough. I think it's a lot like how I do digital art, is that I will build colour up. I start with the lightest one, sometimes I go the other way around, but I start with one tone or one colour and then add more to get the depth or the effects I want. And I just gradually go through it, bit by bit. And it really doesn't take me that long to do, which is fabulous as far as I'm concerned. And I just really, really enjoy doing this. It was very relaxing this morning. I've had just to witter about other things for a moment, and then I'll speed up the rest of this video and perhaps come back at the end with a little bit of an overview of this, because I don't think I've got much else to say about the process as I go along, apart from apologising that my arm will go across often, because I prefer to have paints on the right hand side when I'm working. My water's on the right hand side, on the left hand side, and my water's on the right. And I do eventually get a piece of kitchen towel so I can blot the paintbrush off so it's the right wetness or the right amount of colour on for what I want. Yesterday was a funny day. It was a day full of art, really. I just lost myself in drawing and playing around with colour after I created the video, which took a long ass time to process and upload. And I don't know why, because it was no bigger than others I've done. Technology, what can I say? So I'm suspecting this one is likely to be the same because of me doing, I think it might have been doing a voiceover rather than recording as I was going. Anyway, technical things. So that was really quite nice. And then I had, late in the evening, I decided I really fancied some Indian food, so I ordered a takeaway for delivery from the Indian takeaway I use most often. And the chap who came is always chatty and happy, as you know, I've seen the same one for a number of times now. And he said, "Can I ask you 2 questions?" I said, "Yeah." First thing was about the lovely purple flowers that grow outside my house on the wall and right the way along the street just about, and whether people had planted them or no, they were there when I moved in, you know, sort of like some people take them up and they just keep growing down the wall. They like it here. And he said, they're, you know, really lovely. He said, you know, just wondered that. And he said, "Did you used to teach at such and such a school?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "You taught me." And he said, "Did I?" You've grown up since then, because, you know, obviously I've been out of teaching for, gosh, it's got to be about 5 years now, 6 years perhaps. I don't know for sure. It's got to be, yeah, it's probably about 5 years. And he'd left school about 16 years ago, perhaps longer. And he gave me some names, so I remember the class, not him specifically. And so we spent ages chatting about that, and, you know, about how he's come along and how well he's doing for himself, which is brilliant. And it just cheered me up. Well, I didn't need cheering up, but it really lifted me, because it's lovely to see people reaching their potential. Perhaps they didn't necessarily do it while they were in school, because the school system doesn't suit everybody. And I'm so glad that he decided or worked out for himself that he wasn't going to give up on himself despite all the pressures around him from other people and so on. And it's just great to see somebody do what they love and enjoy what they're doing as well. He does deliveries of takeaway in the evening, but he took that up during the pandemic because he was self-employed as something else. And so, you know, and doing other things, which is brilliant. So that was really nice. And yeah. So, yeah. And it's a lovely sunny day today. Yesterday it got quite chilly actually, but it's nicely sunny. So hopefully my head will clear. This won't take too long to process, or if it does, I think I might just leave it on and doing what it needs to do and try to get out for a bit of fresh air and a walk, because I think that would help my head. So I'm going to stop this here, and I'll speed the video off in a bit. And here I'm back again, and just finishing the very last fish there. And I'm really quite happy with these. I didn't realise they were going to work out quite as nicely as they have done. You know, it's still a sketchbook, it's still a sketchbook thing, you know. If I decide I want to try to use these designs and colour digitally, then I'll just scan them in and redraw the images digitally, which will be great fun. I say an unusual colour palette for me, but then I think at the moment most of my colour palettes are quite unusual for me. I'm quite known for very bright in your face colours, you know, in the past particularly, but over the past, I don't know, few months, several months, I've been veering towards more muted and more earthy colours, I think, or more vintagey. And here there's a mix of both really, because I've got those browns and indigo, and yet I've got those lovely bright greens and the turquoise blue there, but they just seem to be quite nice together. Part of me was hoping that my colours would come out sort of like with a science fiction-y, you know, sort of like, you know, spacey kind of feel, but they haven't. I don't know what they are, but I think it's just what colours I wanted to use, both last night and today. It's quite surprising the difference, even though I've used the same colour palette, basically same watercolours there. The fish look like they belong together, yet they're quite distinct in the way that they are. You know, the colours have come out differently. The bottom one's got a lot more turquoise and greens and yellows in, and the top one perhaps, I don't know. But I think I may continue with this theme for a while and see where it leads. This kind of patterning and shape seems to be appearing a lot in my work at the moment as well. If I think of the mandala I started earlier on this week, these kinds of pattern shapes, the more mechanical kind of feel has come out there as well. So, but it's been threatening to since the end of last year, with all the drawings I did that were quite Mayan or Incan in nature. And those you can find either on my blog or in DeviantArt or on Instagram. If you look back on my timeline that's there, there's probably Twitter and things like that as well. Facebook probably, but it'd be a heck of a thing to find it on my Facebook wall, because I could share so much else as well. But things are beginning to change elsewhere. And perhaps, you know, that's a sign of evolution. It's not a bad thing. And there'll come a time perhaps where different styles of art, or the more botanical nature of my drawings perhaps also gets added to things like this, which could be quite fun. I don't know yet. And I can't think yet. Head hurts. Just doing the very last little bits here now to those little sections there in the, I guess we could call it an underbelly of a fish. Just deepening some shadow there. What do I do with these next? Well, I am very tempted to use some coloured pencils to increase some contrast. I'm very tempted. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it. I'm also quite tempted, as I'm talking about it, to take this page out of the sketchbook, which by me is fine because I can store it elsewhere. I'd have to take it out because the top fish is a bit too close to that spiral, though I might be able to get past that, scan them in anyway. The whole idea is to scan them in and intensify those colours digitally, which I can also do. That could be quite an interesting project, actually, come to think of it, because I've not done that before. Taking something I've coloured with traditional media and then enhance those colours and shadows and so on digitally. So that really could be something quite nice for me to do, that's for sure. I say this, that I see this, in a way, it would have been a really good thing for me to do that bottom fin at the same time I did the kind of one that's curving at the top above it, right at the top with the blues there to get the shades the same, the intensity's the same, but really I think it'll do just fine as it is. It works. And I can always take care of that, whether I use coloured pencils, which I'm tending not towards, because if I mess up with them, I mess up. But I have used them in the past. I was exploring with watercolours over the summer, and to get that intensity of colour that I like, I did put down watercolour as a base and then used coloured pencils to really bring out those colours elsewhere. So I could do the same now. I'm just faffing around there trying to get some of the colour up because I put too much down. I was trying to, I know I was trying to match that paler blue colour at the top. Just intensifying those shadows. There we are. All I need to say now is thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy it, you can leave a thumbs down. But please consider subscribing. Whatever else you do, have a wonderful day. Thank you.